What's up, y'all? I hope you're all in good spirits and feeling great. This one is for the Raza. Don't. This is for the Raza. It's actually for everybody, all people of color and white folks that live in marginalized communities, suffering from excessive pollution because they're poor communities. The LA Times just ran an article on some of the remediation efforts that came out of the Exide battery plant shutting down. If you're not familiar with the Exide battery plant, it was a battery plant in East Los Angeles that operated for about 100 years. And it was polluting the surrounding community. The community was aware of it, but no one seemed to care because it was just Raza. And they cared though, and they started speaking up and organizing, and outside folks came in with their lawyers to support them, and the plant ended up shutting down. But it was recognized that a lot of pollution had happened to the surrounding community, and that pollution was lead pollution, which is a potent neurotoxin. It's well known that kids who play in lead contaminated soil, that were exposed to like lead paint chips from the old paints in their house, can develop cognitive deficiencies. Their brain doesn't develop as well as other people's who, and the damage could be such that they might not be college material where maybe once they were. And so their chances and opportunities are dwindled because of these mental incapacities resulting from constant pollution, and constant pollution that was there because they were brown. And so after the plant closed down, which was a big success for the community, people started talking about cleaning it up. And several legislature folks, mostly Raza, I don't know if the Board of Supervisor Hilda Solis there was part of it, but a lot of folks tried to get money and got $6.5 million allocated to clean up the parkways. The parkways are those green strips of land between streets, between maybe even the street, then there's a parkway, then there's your house. So you cross the parkway to get to your house. And those are supposed to be tested and then remediated, cleaned from the lead so that folks who are there don't recontaminate areas that already been cleaned by taking the soil from there to other places, including into people's houses. And so the Department of Toxic Substances Control, I think they tested 8,100, they took 8,100 soil samples and found that some places, green spaces, were really contaminated. But they didn't follow through with cleaning them, and half of the money ended up reverting back to the state general fund, which was then used for COVID purposes. Since then, a lot of money has been allocated to the cleanup of the community there. I think $330 million, but none of that is designated for the parkways. That money was lost, according to environmental advocates there like ECJE, which works right there at the ports. They said it's a pattern of mismanagement and corruption at the state agency. And as a result of that, this mostly Raza community lost out on the cleaning of these parkways of lead contamination. And one of the justifications they said is that people don't really use those. But a lot of residents said, my kids play on that parkway. My kids cross it every day. That they're up in there looking for bugs. And now I know not to tell them. But, a lot of the people were like, our kids play there. What are you talking about? No one plays there. They had another story of a young couple, Raza. Almost everyone interviewed here is Raza. It's East LA and Southeast LA, right? Said, I was pregnant with my baby and we bought our first house in unincorporated East Los Angeles. We were really happy, thinking we were doing the right thing and starting to live the American dream. And then someone said, about the contamination? And they found out that You know, they were in this contamination zone, so she always has anxiety about what she's exposing her, you know, her new child to. And again, you know, the government had several million to at least clean up the worst of the parkways. And they just didn't follow through. And so that money reverted. It's gone now. You know, the community of East LA, Southeast LA can't use it to clean up some of those parkways because it's been used for COVID and other things. And so I'll also link a letter I've seen going around asking, you know, the feds not to appoint someone that I believe was involved with some of this mismanagement that community is calling out that led to, you know, East Los and Southeast Los losing that money, even though more has been given now, again, to the general cleanup, but it doesn't include the parkways. And, you know, I'll post that letter so you can copy and paste it, send it off if you want, if, you know, you think that the loss of that money for your community, if you live in East LA or Southeast LA, is a problem. You know, that stuff is allocated to you guys by the assembly and the legislature, and then poor mismanagement at the state means you never got the money. You never saw the benefits of that legislation. And in closing, I'll say this too. A lot of the nonprofits that signed on to that letter calling out, you know, this person at the Department of Toxic Substances Control and asking that he not be appointed to a federal position, wouldn't submit a comment letter to Gavin Newsom around his appointment of someone who has lied and misused and abused the South Sacramento community. Because they asked Gavin for funding, for grants. They ask a lot of the people that I'm trying to call out for funding. So even though I don't feel like I was supported in calling out the folks here locally that do that, I do think they're doing the right thing in asking that this person who has demonstrated a disregard for the most marginalized communities not be appointed to a greater position of power. And that's something I've seen a lot. You know, folks come out, they wring their hands, they make all these promises to the community, knowing they're going to get promoted and never have to keep them. So then a new person comes in and does the same thing, and then when you think you're going to get something from them, they get promoted, and it starts all over. And so it's always starting from scratch. And then when they get promoted, they go to these new positions and run the same drag they ran when they were in this previous position, making promises they knew they didn't have to keep. Hold people accountable. And again, this story is specific to Raza and East Los, Southeast Los, but you can bet the same thing is happening to Black communities, to Cambodian communities, to Asian communities, to Middle Eastern communities, to poor white communities across the state. That said, much love. Have a good one.